Imagine for a second, knowing with absolute mathematical certainty that your physical body, no matter how perfectly maintained you keep it, just has a hard, non-negotiable expiration date. Or, imagine trying to push a commercial jet so fast through the atmosphere that it practically rips the air apart, just fighting the very atmospheric pressure that keeps it aloft in the first place.
It is honestly wild to think about how much of our world is bound by those invisible walls.
Welcome to episode 579 of AI Brief. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the absolute limits of biology, silicon, and speed, and how the world's top engineers and scientists are attempting to shatter those ceilings. We're going to start with a massive €5 billion hardware bet over in Europe, then explore some incredible new extremes in science and aviation, and wrap it all up with the latest AI tools designed to supercharge your daily workflow. Basically, we're looking at how silicon, biology, and aviation are all currently bumping up against hard limits, and how today's breakthroughs are trying to break them.
And the definition of what we consider impossible is changing at an astonishing pace this week across both the natural and the digital worlds. This deep dive is really a study in boundaries and what actually happens when we decide to push against them.
So let us start with the digital side of that equation, looking at the physical limits of silicon manufacturing. Intel is officially pouring €5 billion into its campus in Leixlip, Ireland. And this is a massive physical expansion aimed at advanced chip production. They are upgrading their existing fabrication facilities and installing leading-edge equipment to support their Xeon 6 processors and the next-generation Xeon processors. All of this is built on what they call the Intel 3 process.
Which is a huge leap. Because chips are no longer just components you put in a laptop, they are viewed globally as critical strategic infrastructure now.
Exactly, and for anyone who does not spend their weekends reading semiconductor engineering manuals, let us unpack what that Intel 3 process actually means. It is not just some marketing term. It signifies that they are shrinking the transistors on the chip to near atomic levels. We are talking about manipulating matter on a scale so microscopic that a single speck of dust falling on a wafer it is basically like a boulder crashing into a major highway. It allows them to pack exponentially more computing power into a smaller space while drastically reducing the energy required to run it.
Doing that at scale is arguably the most complex manufacturing challenge in human history. You are dealing with physics at a level where thermodynamics become a massive hurdle. If you pack that much processing power into a tiny silicon wafer without perfecting the architecture, the chip will literally generate enough heat to destroy itself.
And to manage that unbelievable complexity, Intel is integrating the entire Leixlip campus through an expanded automated track system. Picture this track system as a hyper-efficient digital circulatory system. In these advanced fabrication plants, human hands never touch the product. The silicon wafers travel along the ceiling in sealed, ultra-clean pods. They move precisely from one massive lithography machine to the next. It is this closed loop designed to pump lifeblood back into Europe's tech ambitions without introducing a single microscopic contaminant from the outside world.
The scale of that operation is just difficult to overstate. The Leixlip site already employs roughly 4,900 people, so this new phase creates even more permanent high-tech jobs while engaging specialized construction and equipment workers to build the infrastructure. And this builds on a deep historical legacy because Intel has invested over €30 billion in Ireland since 1989. But the critical layer here is why this specific €5 billion investment matters on a geopolitical scale.
Because Europe is absolutely desperate for semiconductor sovereignty. They want domestic access to these advanced processors so they are not entirely reliant on overseas supply chains.
Precisely. We have seen how fragile global supply chains can be. As AI integration becomes mandatory for basic economic survival, not having domestic chip production is a massive vulnerability. By positioning Ireland as this critical manufacturing foothold, Intel is attempting to answer that European demand for sovereignty. But this is also a high-stakes test for Intel itself. This massive financial commitment raises the stakes for their Intel 3 ramp-up. It is a direct test of their execution discipline and their underlying ability to rival TSMC in the global foundry race.
Because Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company has dominated this space for years.
They have. So Intel has to prove that their manufacturing comeback is not just theoretical, but functionally real and capable of meeting global demand.
It is fascinating to watch us try to conquer those microscopic limits in silicon, but we are seeing the exact same walls being hit in the physical and biological world. So moving from pushing the limits of silicon manufacturing, we're moving into a space where we are pushing the absolute limits of speed, of nature, and of human biology itself. I will pass the narrative flow over to you to guide us through how these natural and physical barriers are falling this week.
Let us begin with the physical constraints of the sky. Near supersonic flight is inching remarkably close to everyday real-world use. Bombardier's Global 8000 jet just shattered a city pair speed record ahead of its debut at the 2026 Farnborough International Air Show. The jet flew from Los Angeles to Farnborough in under 9 hours.
Which is a wildly fast transatlantic crossing.
It really is. It maintained a cruise speed of Mach 0.93 and managed to do this despite facing highly challenging wind conditions along the entire route.
Mach 0.93 is almost the speed of sound. Achieving that in a civilian business jet is a massive engineering feat. Because when you push an aircraft to that speed, the air resistance basically becomes a physical wall. The drag increases exponentially, which usually ruins your fuel efficiency and stresses the airframe.
That is why the engineering here is so remarkable. It actually has a top speed of Mach 0.95 and still boasts an 8,000 nautical mile range. You can fly from Los Angeles to halfway across the globe non-stop at near supersonic speeds. Bombardier is firmly positioning this jet as the new benchmark for ultra-long-range business aviation. It represents the most significant leap in civilian flight speed since the Concorde was retired.
That is an incredible milestone for aviation limits.
It is. And shifting from human engineering in the skies to evolutionary engineering in the ocean, we have a remarkable update from the natural world. A stunning image just won the 2026 World Nature Photographer of the Year prize. The photograph features an animal named Mahina, which is a 2-year-old all-white humpback whale swimming alongside her mother.
The clarity of the image is breathtaking, but it is the biology of the subject that makes it historic. An all-white humpback is one of the rarest animals on the planet. I think it is only 1 in 40,000 humpback whales that is born lacking normal pigmentation. It is a profound genetic rarity.
And in the wild, lacking pigmentation is often a severe disadvantage. It affects camouflage, making young calves more vulnerable to predators, and it can cause issues with solar radiation. Seeing a 2-year-old surviving and thriving alongside her mother is incredibly rare. Capturing this specific creature on film with such high quality makes it one of the most striking wildlife photos of the entire year.
It is a beautiful testament to nature defying the odds.
Staying in the ocean, marine biologists off the coast of Baja California have documented a completely new behavioral limit being pushed by apex predators. Orcas have developed a highly coordinated, clever hunting strategy to consume giant ocean sunfish.
And ocean sunfish are fascinating creatures. They are the world's largest bony fish, and they possess incredibly thick, tough skin. It is essentially biological dermal armor. A predator cannot just bite through it with normal hunting tactics.
Since their teeth are ineffective against that dermal armor, the orcas have adapted the laws of physics to their advantage. Marine biologists filmed them ramming into the sunfish at incredibly high speeds. They use sheer, blunt force trauma to fragment the sunfish carcass into edible pieces.
They are turning themselves into biological torpedoes, just generating enough kinetic energy to shatter an animal that is virtually impervious to traditional biting.
What makes this truly fascinating is the intelligence behind it. Scientists believe this specific, highly coordinated technique is culturally transmitted among the pod. The older orcas are actively teaching this specialized tactic to the younger generations, proving how adaptable biological problem-solving can be when faced with a physical limit.
It is amazing how evolution finds a workaround for physical barriers like that armor.
But for all that adaptability, biological systems do have ultimate, immovable limits. Researchers have established a mathematical model this week that puts a hard number on the maximum possible human lifespan. Even if we completely eliminated every single reversible cause of aging, curing all diseases and perfecting our cellular maintenance, this model suggests humans could live no longer than around 156 years.
Let us break down why that is, because it comes down to cellular mechanics. Specifically, it is the difference between cells that divide and cells that do not. We have organs that can regenerate. The human liver, for example, could theoretically survive and function for thousands of years because its cells constantly divide, repair, and replace themselves.
However, we rely on non-dividing cells to survive, specifically the neurons in the human brain and the specialized cells in the heart. Because they cannot replace themselves, they slowly accumulate irreversible DNA damage over decades. That microscopic accumulation of unfixable errors creates a hard biological ceiling at exactly 156 years.
And that longevity math is a heavy concept to digest. It raises an intense philosophical pushback for me. Are we essentially hostages to our most vital organs? It is a strange position to realize that the bulk of our bodily tissue, might be built for near eternity, yet we are entirely trapped by the microscopic fragility of our brain and our heart.
It is a very sobering perspective on the human condition.
It really is. And since we are constantly bumping up against the biological limits of the human brain, it makes sense that we are relentlessly building software to extend our cognitive limits and boost our daily productivity. The AI tools trending today are all about breaking through the bottlenecks of our own workflow. Let us break down the 6 most impactful ones from today's sources and explore how they actually solve practical problems. First up is Wispr Flow. This is an AI dictation tool, but it solves a very specific friction point, which is the gap between typing speed and thinking speed.
Which is a huge bottleneck for most of us.
Yeah, definitely. The practical use case here is immense. You can be pacing your office, speaking completely naturally. You can pause, stutter, change your mind mid-sentence, and Wispr Flow will process your intent and instantly draft your thoughts perfectly into polished emails across any app you are using. It removes the mechanical barrier of typing.
And that mechanical barrier is often where we lose our best ideas. By allowing you to dictate conversationally and trusting the AI to format the final output, you are preserving the flow state that usually gets interrupted by hunting for keys on a keyboard.
That friction of translation is exactly what another tool called Pazi is trying to solve, but for back-end business operations. Pazi introduces a concept called vibe coding. Let us explain what vibe coding actually means, because it sounds like a Silicon Valley buzzword. It is translating natural language and broad goals into actual back-end syntax.
So you do not need to be a software engineer to use it.
Exactly. If you need to streamline complex back-end workflows, like, say, routing data from an invoice into a database, and then triggering a personalized customer email, you normally need to know how to code. Pazi allows you to build those operations through intuitive interaction. You describe the vibe or the goal of the workflow, and the AI writes the complex syntax required to execute it behind the scenes.
That democratizes back-end engineering for people who understand the business logic perfectly but lack traditional programming skills. It removes syntax as a barrier to entry.
Third is ClawTeams. This acts as a proactive, goal-driven AI team specifically designed for e-commerce. Traditional AI requires you to prompt it continuously. It is reactive. ClawTeams operates on autonomous loops. You can set it to manage an online store's inventory, analyze market trends, and actively execute campaigns to drive your sales goals without manual oversight.
You give it a destination, and it autonomously steers the ship while you focus on high-level strategy.
Fourth, we have Unabyss for Claude. This solves a massive friction point for anyone using large language models on a daily basis. The use case is keeping a persistent context of your ongoing projects. Normally, you face a limited context window. You have to re-explain your entire business model, project history, or workflow to Claude every single time you start a new session.
Which is incredibly frustrating and wastes so much time.
Unabyss provides shared memory architecture across your apps and the AI model. It remembers the context of your work from yesterday, allowing you to just pick up the conversation naturally without re-uploading documents.
It cures the artificial amnesia that makes working with language models so tedious. Having a persistent memory turns the tool from a momentary search engine into an actual ongoing collaborator.
Fifth is Velo 3.0, which is an AI video infrastructure tool. Generating professional video has traditionally been a slow, rendering-heavy process requiring specialized hardware and editing skills.
The rendering alone can take hours.
Exactly. If you need to instantly generate professional video content to explain a brand new product to a client, or perhaps train a new employee on a complex software system, Velo 3.0 spins that up immediately. It translates your text or basic storyboards into fully rendered professional video in moments.
That speed to market is a game changer for content teams.
Finally, there's V2 Fun. This generates 3D characters utilizing 8K textures and AI motion capture. For anyone in game development, creating a high-fidelity 3D model with realistic textures and manual rigging used to take weeks of painstaking manual labor. V2 Fun allows you to rapidly spin up and animate digital avatars with a level of fidelity that completely bypasses that manual bottleneck.
Looking at that list, there's a clear thematic shift happening in the tech landscape. We are moving away from viewing AI as a simple chatbot you ask questions to in a separate browser window. These tools represent AI becoming a ubiquitous infrastructure layer. It operates persistently and proactively in the background of your daily work, bridging the gap between your intent and the final execution.
That infrastructure layer is just one more way we are building ladders over our own biological and mechanical limitations. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into today's developments. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the boundaries being broken across technology, nature, and our own biology. As you go about your day, consider what personal heart limits in your own daily workflow might actually be completely solvable with the technology we just discussed.
Because we spend so much time accepting bottlenecks as permanent laws of physics.
But as we saw today with silicon manufacturing and near supersonic flight, the ceiling is often just a puzzle waiting to be solved. If you found today's insights valuable, please follow and share the podcast with someone who loves staying ahead of the curve.
It has been wonderful sharing these breakthroughs with you. Take care and keep exploring.
See you in the next episode.